Hello, it's episode 236 of Rail Matter. Are cars really the future of green transport? Question mark, brackets, exclamation mark, no, exclamation mark. I don't know why I added an exclamation mark in there. Anyway, right, extra, whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's the Resolution Foundation report that made me extremely angry about a week ago. Hello, good evening, everyone. Hello, it's nice to see you all. That was a weird start, but yeah, Let's press on. I'm going to see if, and don't all laugh at once, I'm going to see if we can keep this one a nice tight episode today, because as I'll tell you later on in the episode, I have been talking all day, and I'll be recording an episode of a popular podcast after this, and I'll be talking a bit more, so I need to rest my voice. However, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have a live episode of Rail Matter where I say many things. But let's start, however, by talking about... No, that's not what I wanted to do. I've just printed a page of Google Chrome. Let's talk about the COVID travel recovery stats. Here we go. We haven't done this for a while. Let's have a look. What's going on? Well, to be honest, the story is about the same as it has been for quite a while. There is you can see the kind of the broad trend here, although drawing trend lines is silly. I've transposed it down a bit, you can see, but the little thin red line I've drawn there, we're asymptoting against 100%, which I have to be honest kind of makes some sense given how everything was already kind of full before. We can only squeeze so much more growth out of the current rail network because we're not running any more services on it. So where do those extra people go if all trains are full and you can only squeeze so many more people on an existing full train? And there are no more spaces for new trains. So I can understand that situation is happening. There is, we're going to continue to see that rise. The rolling average, as you can see, is continuing to rise, but the rate of rising, I suspect, is going to slow and slow. I expect to see that sit over the top of the 100% mark, within a couple of months. But yeah, it's definitely the rate of growth, or the rate of return. Bearing in mind the numbers are all over 100, mostly over 100%. Although there has been a little bit of a dip actually, but by and large, the numbers are at or around 100% of pre-COVID ridership levels. But for rail, that is. But for also a big drop for bus, which I still don't know what's going on here. It's a very strange. It's not tied to any other trend. We have the other drop before as well. Let me get rid of all my red lines. This one here, this one, and then this bigger one here. I don't know what's going on here. Another interesting point that I wanted to add is. TfL still have not fixed the mess caused by their cybersecurity breach, so the big cyber attack they suffered, meaning that they still aren't recording ridership numbers. Ridership data is not just a nice to have. This is really critical data for understanding all sorts of things. And so for this data to just not exist for several months is just not good enough. Really, really appalling. It's a side effect of that massive cyber attack, but an important one. So... that's really all I wanted to say about that. We're gonna get on with things. So you can see cars and taxis is doing about the same thing. Also has dropped a little bit. Interestingly, where cars and taxis has dropped, buses has also dropped, but rail has increased. So I wonder, is that just the? Are we just looking at the kind of the medium range trend of the summer holidays? There is that what's going on? Maybe. Because I'm trying to see if it's matched anywhere else. Not really. What's interesting is that for a period of time, rail is actually exceeding roads percentage-wise. Not in absolute terms, of course, but in relative terms, rail has actually been exceeding roads usage, which is fascinating for a couple of months there. Actually, maybe I should zoom in on that and have a closer look. Anyway, very interesting. So. Oh, lots of chat already. Let's go. Sore voice. Do at me if you've got questions. Gareth is saying, also, let's not forget all the cancelled trains reducing actual capacity. Absolutely. I wouldn't expect TfL to fix that before next year, I guess, says Raphael. Thanks, Raphael. Andy K. Hi, Gareth. Nice graph, but what's the source for the travel recovery data? Link, please. You know what? I can drop the link in, and I'm going to. I can do that right now. The link is here. It's DFT data. There you go. Link dropped in. You can click on that link in the chat because it's a link from me and or a spanner. Kerr, please, for next time, add some vertical grid lines. Oh yeah, I did used to have vertical grid lines, but I've got rid of them. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll. To be honest, you could. It's easier, Kerr, to just download the data for yourself, and you can dig through it quite nicely. Raphael Nicholas, can cars and taxis be split in that? I could do a split, but I want to keep it nice and simple. These are the three traces that I think are most pertinent. There's quite a lot more data that you can dig into, but yeah, that's one for the time. So, having gone through all that, I think it's time we crack on, to be honest. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, yeah, there is a very low latency on YouTube today. I pressed go and it pretty much instantly brought me up, which is very impressive. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So a couple of things. First thing, we're going to start with the news. But before we talk about any more news, we are going to start with the budget chat. Of course, I'm going to just click capture cursor before I forget to do so, so that we can talk about things. Oh, look, there's the cursor. Yes, the budget. I'm sure there'll be more to say about the budget next week when we do. Oh yeah, I didn't decide what I was going to do next week, did I? Oh well, I can improvise that as an answer. No, you don't want to see that. That's the PowerPoint presentation by which I actually do this from. There's going to be a news episode, news episode, news next week, but not this week. This week we're just looking at the Resolution Foundation report. So there we go. That'll do as a holding pattern for now. So budget. For rail, I'm just going to talk about the rail point here. The budget is, there is nothing for rail at all. Not a single thing. 69 concurrent viewers. Nice. Anyway, sorry, I get myself distracted when I see funny things. Yeah, no, nothing. So in the budget, they talked about electrifying between Manchester and Leeds, and they talked about activating, and before the end of the year or sometime in the early next year, we'll have activated electrification or whatever it was, or we will have electrified, or electric trains will be running between Manchester and Stalybridge, which, by the way, was finished before the last general election, just gone, and also between York and Church Fenton, which has been finished for like 2 years. So let me just say that's not an announcement. That's stuff that's already been promised, and if you had done anything other than continued with it, it would have been even worse. So that is all you mentioned that, but none of that's new. The other thing you mentioned is, and pretended to be good about, was tunnelling to Euston for HS2. That was also something that the previous government said it was doing. So that's not even a new announcement either. And you've said nothing about actually building Euston Station. So it's all very well building a tunnel that trains can find their way to a giant hole in, but that doesn't actually give you that doesn't matter. It's nothing. It's nothing. You talked a bit about some rubbish about the housing developer at the oversight development at the station, and some other rubbish about private invest. No one is going to privately fund Euston Station. If you want that station to be built, commit to building it with public money now. Just absolutely staggering. Just extremely frustrating. So actually what's interesting is that this budget is actually worse than the previous budget, which actually, even if it made a load of stuff up, actually promised stuff via the nonsense Network North rubbish. At least they said stuff, whereas this budget says nothing, absolutely nothing for rail investment. It's staggering. It's the worst budget we have had for railways since the Blair years, which is really breathtaking, just genuinely shocking. Anyway, I'm very angry about that. They also mentioned about Bradford Forster Square. The new platform is already half built. Yeah, it's just all a load of just very, very. So as I say, more detail on that next week. But yeah, just really hopeless. A quick word, by the way. Hi to Andy K. Hi, Gareth. Nice graph. What's the source of the data? Andy, cheers. I've noticed lack of sources in some of your slides before. Hi. This isn't the place to come for sources. If you want sources, you can Google it, find the information yourself. I merely signpost people in the right direction. Don't expect to find sources on these slides. This isn't that kind of show. If there's information that you want to go and find, that I'm referring to, or that you feel is unsourced, I mean, you can always message in the chat, and people might drop the link in. But no, this isn't the place. Go and do the searching and the research for yourself. I'm merely signposting you as an expert. So that's that bit of news. Oh yeah, Ella rightly has said there's new rail. If you want to do Rail Natter Bingo, well, at some point we'll have to talk about what the hell the Rail Natter Bingo is. It's very silly, but there is a link. You can go and find your way to the Rail Natter Bingo. It's extremely silly. The link isn't actually seeming to work there, but never mind. Tunnel, bring trains into giant hole, the station will come by itself. It's funny, I actually referred to that when I was in my book and in the bit of the book that I was reading today in studio. Anyway, more on that later. So, budget, nothing. What else can we talk about in the news? Well, let's have a look, shall we? Wait a minute, I'm trying to be clever with my enunciations, but just give me a sec. Right, so I'll shut up. What's going to happen next? Well, Michael C. is going to do a little bit of a tour for us.
Let's have a look at Britain's newest station, Ashley Down. Opening in Bristol between Stapleton Road and Filton Abbey Wood, Ashley Down has 2 platforms on the slow lines of a quad-tracked rail corridor leading northwards from Temple Meads. It's served with an hourly service between Bristol Temple Meads and Filton Abbey Wood, but this is planned to be increased to half-hourly when the new stations on the Henbury line are opened in 2026 or 2027. Looking at the station itself, it sits within a pretty densely populated suburban area and has good active travel links in all directions, including a subway under the tracks to serve the eastern side of the station and the Concord Way active travel route which roughly parallels the railway on a north-south axis. It's on Concord Way that you'll find one of the notable features of this station, a community artwork project which spells out the word progression. Next to the station, there's a fairly sizable cycle storage area, and in the station itself, the entrance area has a single cashless ticket machine and a smart card scanner. This is also where you'll find posters and timetable information. The station has 2 platforms. We're on platform 1 for northbound trains, whilst over the bridge is platform 2 for southbound trains towards Temple Meads. Both platforms have a single bus stop style shelter, as well as the usual station furniture you'd expect, such as help points, benches and litter bins. Unfortunately, many of the benches seem to be leaning bars rather than proper benches, which I'm not really a fan of. The only remaining thing to talk about is the footbridge linking the 2 platforms. They've tried to make it somewhat architecturally interesting by covering the lift shafts in a brick cladding, although they seem to be missing the station nameboard which had been indicated in many of the artist renders. The bridge itself has these glass windows allowing a view down onto the tracks. It's a minor detail, but one I appreciate, as otherwise the sides of these bridges are often too high for me to see over. There's not really too much else to say about the station. Both the lifts work fine, and I'm sure the station will serve its role very well, especially when they eventually increase the service frequency to something more reasonable.
Thanks, Michael. That's terrific. I'm very pleased about that. I have so a couple of things I'm going to say on the station. I'll tell you, I'll go big face for this bit. You can see how rough I look, like the neck beard. It's not in a good state. Sorry, I'm in audio podcast recording form, and I haven't taken care of myself physically. I'm not hiding in a hole, super depressed from still not having a job, probably, or not yet, anyway. That station, firstly, it's so frustrating to see like the bare minimum components for a new station. Where's the hub station stuff? Where's the architectural interest? And more critically than that, this is a station in a massive city, and it has a 1-hourly service. What? Well, we know why. It's because it's on a very heavily used mixed traffic railway that has no capacity for additional services. But even when it ups to a half-hour service, that's hopeless. It's in a city. That's nothing. It's rubbish. Oh my god. So frustrations with that. Michael C. Terrific summary of what the station has. It's very frustrating just seeing an absolute identikit galvanized steel bits station with the bus shelters and everything, and yet it costs so much. It's just so utterly bereft of any imagination whatsoever. It's very frustrating. So, yeah. But anyway, no, thanks, Michael. And you know what? In a second, we're going to hear from Michael again, because Michael's been doing some other shenanigans. What I'm about to do is now cough desperately while we talk about the next thing. No, I'm not better yet. So, don't worry, I'll keep this brief. Euston passenger experience improvements. Yes. So this is Louise Haig, the Secretary of State for Transport here. For too long, the passenger experience at Euston has simply not been good enough. I'm pleased that by working with Network Rail and the operators, we've been able to deliver this improvement. We'll keep moving fast and fixing things. So, let me just talk about this for a second. So, firstly, in the firstly, it's funny that this tweet and the Network Rail tweet yesterday have both been tremendously ratioed by people on the internet going, what about Gareth? What about the Hendy? We haven't forgotten this. Which, let me tell you, has clearly had impacts, because it has absolutely definitely resulted in the Secretary of State for Transport directly contacting Andrew Haines and pestering him angrily. So that's very funny. And I'm sorry, but good. That's the point, that this is not done yet. You've the open sore of what was allowed to happen without any response, other than you doing everything I said you needed to do, is still there, still festering, and still causing the industry problems. Until Hendy's gone, until there's a public apology, this isn't finished. Anyway, that's the first thing. Second thing, throughout the literature of these announcements, which I'll reiterate are all things that either I've said, or in this case of the station rush, everyone using the station has said is dangerous. This is an imperfect solution, by the way. This is something that a few disabled people have said they're worried about, because they're feeling like the one moment they get when they go ahead to access the train early, are they going to lose that and end up getting swamped? Well, mixed feelings on that. Partly because a lot of disabled travellers do end up in the rush and suffer from it. So anything that diminishes that helps them. But overall, this is the worst major station in the UK for accessibility, and assistance, as found by Doug Polly's legal exploits recently, announcing as much. The court found that to be the case. So, in the literature for these announcements, they keep using the phrase, and repeatedly using the phrase, passenger experience. And you can see in this tweet, for too long, the passenger experience at Euston has simply not been good enough. Let me just be absolutely crystal clear. When they say passenger experience in this context, that is the euphemism they have decided to go with as a replacement for the word safety. So Louise Haig saying here, for too long, the passenger experience at Euston has simply not been good enough. What she means is, for too long, safety at Euston has simply not been good enough. That is what is being meant here. These improvements are not just happening because, they're happening because the Secretary of State and government has been embarrassed by all of the furore at Euston. As I say, more to come on that. But they're happening because safety is not good enough. That's why this is happening. And so, again, more vindication for me, but also more silence from industry in not responding robustly to this. Let's see, shall we? Anyway, enough on Euston, because Michael C. is joining us again to have more to say. If I'd clicked on the slides and was able to actually click forwards.
Belfast Grand Central makes a stark contrast from previous station openings. It has quite an unassuming entrance, but this is because the public realm works in the area are still ongoing. Once inside the station, its vastness becomes apparent. This is a major city centre hub designed to provide interchange between bus and rail services, with 26 bus bays and 8 rail platforms. In fact, during the planning stage, it was being referred to as the Belfast Transport Hub. The new Grand Central station actually replaces a smaller existing station called Great Victoria Street, as well as the Europa Bus Centre. The new hub is now Belfast's main station, with all services running in and out of it, rather than previously, where services were split between Great Victoria Street and Lanyon Place. The increased capacity is already bringing benefits, with the Enterprise train to Dublin set to increase its frequency from 2-hourly to hourly from the 29th of October. Near the entrance, the station has a customer help desk, as well as ticket machines for both bus and rail services. The bus bays have departure information screens, seating areas, and rope queues to handle waiting passengers. Further down, other facilities include some toilets with a water refill point outside, something which far too many places are missing. Next to this, there's another customer service desk, which I'm assuming is also capable of selling tickets, judging from the fact it has card readers. The station has a lot of retail space, though the only one that seems to be open at the moment is this Pret-a-Manger. There's also an unopened mezzanine level, which I'm told will have further retail space and waiting areas, as well as this window, which will allow passengers a view down onto the railway tracks. Speaking of which, I've teased you long enough. The railway part of the station is accessed through these ticket barriers, which leads to a large concourse from which you can access all 8 of the station's terminus platforms. This is a lot for a new station, and I don't think we'll see anything again on this scale until the HS2 stations start opening up. The platforms themselves have canopies along the full length of them, including underneath the larger station roof, which I find quite interesting. Platforms 5 to 8 are slightly longer than platforms 1 to 4 to allow use by the Enterprise trains, and dotted along the platforms you'll find benches, leaning bars, departure screens, wheelchair ramps and help points. And that pretty much sums up Belfast Grand Central. If you're interested in learning more, I have full videos for both Grand Central and Ashley Down over on my channel. Additionally, I also have a second channel where I'm trying to decipher just what the hell is going on in broader rail news. Speaking of which, let's hand it back to Gareth as he tries to do the same.
Oh, thanks, Michael. That's terrific as ever. Absolute joy to have you along and having during our little roving reporter segment. Michael isn't little, as in the segments are little of travelling around the GB rail network. Oh, indeed, in this case, the UK rail network, and seeing what's going on. So brief. No, that's Descam. Brief thoughts on that are good. It's big. Good. It will eventually, although still hasn't, incorporated all the bus routes, which I'm very pleased about. The branding is a little bit messy, but it's nice to see some level of integration between bus and rail. Remember that rail is nationalised in Northern Ireland and integrated in theory with much of the bus network. Not integrated ticketing, though, as I think Gareth has angrily pointed out, rightly in the chat. Very nice. So what else have we got here? So yeah, there's a few bits and there's some general good stuff. Anyway, Michael C. Very nice. Very nice summary. So, what else do we have to say? Well, I guess to be honest, we have to crack on with this thing. Let's get this report. It's 21 minutes past, so that wasn't much news, but we've already eaten some time. So let's get on with it, shall we? So the Resolution Foundation report. So this report was released on the 17th of October. Adam Corlett, Zachary Leather, and Jonathan Marshall writing it, and with what appears to be European Climate Foundation support. You know what? I could have, for this episode, researched the European Climate Foundation. I'm not... European Climate Foundation. There we go. Let's see. What are we going to learn about the European Climate Foundation? Who funds them? Its aim is to promote climate and energy-related... There we go. Fostering development of net zero emissions society at the national, European, and global levels. Its aims to promote climate and energy funding. Who funded them? Okay, Carbon Brief is European Climate Foundation, so Climate Brief is good. That's fine. I apologise that I've had a cough at the end of my throat all day, which, as you can imagine, for what I've been up to all day and now, has been frustrating. Doing a lot of muting myself. Do you know what? I cannot learn much from this about the European Climate Foundation. They don't seem shifty. They seem fairly innocuous. And the Resolution Foundation, they do a lot of good stuff. As you'll see, is that I am extremely disappointed in this report, and I was disappointed in the summary thread that explained it as well, because it was utterly bereft of anything of any just frighteningly bereft of any information, bereft of any proper analysis of what it actually said, which is extremely frustrating. So funders, here are the people who fund the European Climate Foundation: IKEA, Postcode, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, McCall McBain Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Porticus, Grantham Foundation, Arcadia. An interesting mixture. Probably not. It's not an Adam Smith Institute situation. There's probably not much to read into it, to be honest. Fine. So let me see. So right, getting the green light. Let me crack on. We're going to read this report. Let's have a proper look. So, getting the green light. We're going to do a page turn. I don't know how many pages there are. I gave a flick through this, but I can't remember how many pages. We're going to go through and experience it organically. In fact, close your eyes if you're photosensitive, because I'll whiz through and see how many pages we've got. So let's have a look. We have got, what was that, 69 pages. Nice. In this document, of which there's a bit of this, there's a bit of that. Right, I'm going to whiz back. And, okay, so from now on it'll be a bit more gentle. So, contents. There's some acknowledgements, there's an exec summary, there's an introduction. We're going to skip the exec summary as usually we do, and we're going to go into the... we're going to get on with the introduction from 13, possibly even skip a bit of that, but we'll have a look at the introduction, and then get angry as we go through the headings. So the headings of this should give you an idea. So, acknowledgements, executive summary, introduction, section 2, getting more cars on the road should be the priority. Right. The public charging network needs to be plentiful, geographically dispersed, and fairly priced. Okay, sure. Households reliant on public transport risk missing out on big savings. Okay. Aviation's share of our carbon footprint is set to grow, so flyers need to pay their way. Sure, fine. Okay, so this is... You'll start seeing what the problem with this is. For anyone who's not familiar with me getting angry at this report, there's the hint that you will need to come upon. But, yeah, right, so let's go through this. I wonder if the headline from the tweet thread will actually be represented in the information here. But sorry, we're going to ignore the executive summary. Or are we? Yeah, we are. Yes, we are. You know what? Here's the title in the executive summary that I think will make you angry. Cutting travel emissions means focusing on cars first. Now, if that means by reducing the number of cars, then I would, you know what, be absolutely on board with that. Let me just give you a spoiler alert. It does not. No. So let's get on with it, shall we? Right, forget the executive summary. Section 1, introduction. Right. Transport emissions are the largest single contributor to the UK's carbon footprint and need to fall rapidly. Nothing to disagree with there. So there's a load of stuff there that we know about. Fine. And here's the figure 1. Transport emissions need to fall rapidly over the 2020s and 30s. And here we go, as you can see. Transport here split into the big blue thing here is cars and vans. The red thing is buses. Green is aviation. Blue is shipping, and yellow is HGVs. So you can see that the majority of emissions come from personal transit, personal cars. Now, why is this? By the way, currently that's 80 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent. That's an important number to have in your heads. Rail's current CO2 emissions are about 3.5-4 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent. So, you know, a tiny 20th of that, a tiny percentage. By the way, by percent mode share, rail emits about a quarter of what road does, just by mode share, forgetting the specifics and details. So the detail here is saying, so this graph is basically saying, firstly, big factor here, where is the spike from the embodied carbon emissions from all these new cars that are appearing? Okay. So, right. This is going on about who this is going to impact if these changes happen. Okay, fine. So, let's see. The next point they make is transport emissions and travel spending are dominated by cars. That's correct. Absolutely they are, yes. And there's a load of stuff here. So, it's talking about decarbonising cars. Well, okay, yes. Household spending on cars is lumpy, irregular, and varies considerably by income, complicating policy in this area significantly. Now, how might we get around that, I wonder? Providing incentives for motorists to move quickly towards EVs, especially while they remain priced at a significant premium to their petrol and diesel counterparts, 40% higher for equivalent models in 2023, can lead to significant winners and losers. Absolutely, yes. But then they say, but decarbonising cars will bring big savings on running costs. Not for the road network, it won't. And do they mention that? They do not appear to. No. So, right. So, okay. Not everyone is going to be impacted by transport decarbonisation in the same way. Yeah, absolutely fine. That's correct. So let's see. So, despite a justified policy focus on cars, okay, the implications of transport decarbonisation will also extend to those who travel by other means. Okay, yeah, fine. Public transport will also have a role in reducing emissions. What? Will also have a role. It will have the main role. Okay, interesting. So, okay, right. Okay, so this is the painful bit. Section 2. Getting more electric cars on the road should be the priority. The dominance of cars in UK travel means that decarbonising the vehicle stock is the clear policy priority for cutting transport emissions. Is it? What? Decarbonising the vehicle stock is the clear policy priority. Who's according to who? According to what data? So they've just assumed that, right? So they've just assumed it outright. They've just assumed it. They've sent out a report that just assumes that that that's correct. Absolutely no interrogation of whether that's correct. Policy in this area has to date focused on the relatively small number of better-off households who buy new cars, convincing them to switch to electric. Yes. Follow that to its next level. Oh, no, they've not. The point of this is to give manufacturers confidence that there will be demand for EVs so the market can... Oh, my God. Okay. Despite its importance to lower-income motorists, policymakers should resist intervening in the market for used EVs. Why? Subsidies or tax breaks in the second-hand market are likely to lead to a large rise in prices given supply constraints. I just... Okay, right. So they're not even. They don't even interrogate. So they've gone through the report right here. So they have not even interrogated. And you know what? Off the bat, we're going to do a quick public transport. There we go. So 13 appearances. Sorry about the sniff. What? Why is it? Edge, what are you doing? Right. So. I'm okay. 85 appearances. Right, let's go to the start and see what they say about public transport. I want to see what the mentions of public transport are here, and that's how we're going to have a look at this. So, this is the I missed this in the executive summary, and I shouldn't have because it makes me extremely angry. Let's just read this sentence, shall we? Public transport is not the answer to decarbonising travel. What the are you talking about? What? Again, who? What? Okay, so let's read the you know what? I'm just going to read the executive summary of this bit. Some argue a mass migration away from cars and towards public transport should play a key role in decarbonisation, but such a rabbit ears modal shift is becoming less important for climate change and will yield carbon savings only in the short term. Electrification means that by the late 2030s, the emissions from average car and public transport journeys will be similar. Breathe. The act of decarbonising public transport, not particularly relevant, but anyway. You know what, I'm not fine. So, right, let's have. Okay, so they're saying buses, trains, lower incomes. Yep. So they're not even. Okay, just you know what? Right. So we're not even going to finish searching for the public transport thing because I'm so angry about that. So let's whiz through to section 2, and you know what? That's the report. In terms of public transport, that is what they have to say. They just think that modal shift is bad. Where do they think these cars come from? Where do they think these electric cars come from? Do they think they just magically appear out of thin air? What do they think goes into manufacturing these things? Where do they think the materials that create these vehicles come from? So I'm going to not spend too much time on this report because it's a crock of shit, as you might have noticed. But so there's a load of stuff. Like some of the other stuff is like, oh, fine, you have to make it fair for people who have EVs. Absolutely agree. But this is horseshit. This is just nonsense. Cars are getting bigger and heavier. Yeah, we know about that. We did an episode on it, and it was terrific. I'd recommend everyone goes back and listens to it. What do they say about big cars? They say that they need to be regulated out, right? No, they don't. No, they don't say that. Good. There are some benefits of larger cars, particularly around safety and crashes. Oh my goodness. Who has paid for this report is what I want to know. Yeah, Owen O'Neill is saying the basic problem is that they're only looking through the carbon lens and completely forgetting about every other policy objective related to transport, which are lots. The thing is, they're just ignoring embodied carbon. As I'm sorry, but so many other people do. They're basic, and the way they'll be doing that, and I don't, you know what? Let's do a quick search. Bod. No, I'm in the wrong thing. Where's my F gone? I've F. Control F. No, I did Shift F. Where? Control F. No, wait a minute. I've broken it. Let's go again. No, I didn't want to do that either. Let's go. Oh, Edge. Behave. Control F. Okay, I guess Control F isn't working anymore on Edge. Edge, fantastic bit of software. I'm so glad that it works so well. Let's find, so we're going to find embodied, no, carbon. Embodied manufacturing. Manufacture, to see if we pick up anything. Oh, okay. So, manufacture. I tell you what, do you know what might be? Because I'm suspecting that I'm not finding it. Let's just read the acknowledgements, because I suspect. Let's go back. I suspect that nothing about manufacturers. Okay. Manufacturers. Okay, so there appears to be absolutely nothing about manufacturing carbon in here. Tell you what, let's read the acknowledgements section, shall we? Because maybe this might be enlightening. We would like to thank the large number of stakeholders consulted during this project, including colleagues from the Department for Transport, useless waste of time, HM Treasury, useless waste of time, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, don't care, the Climate Change Committee, they're a bit car obsessed as well, the Society for Motor Manufacturers and Traders, the AA, the British Vehicle Rental and Leasing Association, ZapMap, Charge UK, Transport and Environment, they're good, the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, no idea, the Local Government Association, the Confederation of Passenger Transport, Zemo Partnership, and some other stuff that I'm not familiar with. Okay, now, okay, so let's, sorry, that was a quick flick. I'm going to flick through a bit quickly again to get back to where we were. What else is this saying? Because I'm too angry to look through much more of this, but I think you get the vibe. So section 3 is about public charging network needing to be plentiful, geographically dispersed and fairly priced. You know what? Probably everything in this section I agree with. There's no point even dwelling on it, so fine. Let's just let that fly through. Section 4, households reliant on public transport risk missing out on big savings. So this is where they start spouting more of this nonsense. Reflecting the dominance of cars in household travel, some argue that replacing car journeys with those by bus or train is the way to bring down emissions. But such a, again, brackets, modal shift, rabbit ears rather, will only have a temporary effect as electrification. Okay, they've said that and it's rubbish. There is also a reason for thinking decarbonising public transport, which accounts for 1% of UK emissions, should be easier to deliver given the role government... Again, you're missing the point. It's not decarbonising public transport isn't relevant. The whole point of it is that you just get people out of cars. So, right. So this is interesting. So they say around a quarter of adults don't have regular car access, rising to 2 in 5 in the lowest income fifth of the population. Actually, it's higher than that, but anyway. A rise in the relative cost of public transport through motoring getting cheaper is undesirable in its own right as it further increases incentives to drive, making congestion even worse, among other things. But it should also be resisted on equity ground. Okay, yep, fine. Blanket subsidies are one way to address this problem, but these tend to be badly targeted, especially for trains. What? While the current ways of discounting public transport is not designed with distribution of consequences in mind. Also true. As such, this section will explore how public transport's role in decarbonising travel could impact living standards and how to ensure that... Okay, right. So again, they're going on about the modal shift thing. Modal shift from cars to lower carbon modes can theoretically provide big carbon savings. Yes. Yes, correct. But then they're saying, but carbon savings from modal shift will prove temporary. Just, what else is at play here, Resolution Foundation? What else is at play? Absolutely staggering. Just, this is shifting journeys from cars to public transport. So, okay, this... Decarbonising public transport is necessary, but this won't hugely shift the dial on emissions. You know what? They're actually correct on that one. That is true. Sorry about the sniff. The real problem is that poorer households will miss out on the big savings from EVs. Yes, it is the real problem. Now, how might you solve that? Yeah, so there's a whole section here where they're kind of making one of the cases why what they're saying in this report is bad, but they don't seem to be joining the dots. Terrific. So then there's a whole thing about aviation, which again, I probably agree on, so that's fine. Section 5, aviation emissions, fine. And then the conclusion. So, yep, that's pretty much the, that's pretty much, I'm not even going to, you know what, I'm not going to dignify them by reading their conclusion. That is the report. And it's bad, folks. How did this get published? What were they thinking? What were they thinking? Whoa. So, I have some thoughts here. And you know what? I'm going to do something a bit unusual because I'm going to go big face for a minute because, and I'm not going to stay big face, I'm going to use a humorous image to annotate this bit. I'm going to do something, you're all going to get a bit of an exclusive because I'm going to read you a little bit from the book because I don't think, well, there's a complicated picture here at play, and the neatest way for me to summarise that picture is to do the thing I've been doing all day, which is read you an extract of the book. I can feel my throat starting to tickle, so I'm going to have a drink of water. I do not know how old that water is. It's best not to worry. No. I'm going to read you an extract of the book. And it should... So, firstly, exclusive book extract. Ooh. Secondly, secondly, this will... the actual reading of the audiobook, which is in production, spoiler alert, will be better than this. Thirdly... I'm going to get rid of my face so you don't have to look at me while I read because you'll just be looking at the top of my head, which is no good for anyone. Let me read from my book, which is an unusual thing for me to do for Rail Natter, but hopefully it'll make you'll understand why, because it will paint, hopefully, a broad and clear picture as to why this report is a fucking... I meant to beep there, and I actually just muted myself, which is kind of the same effect, but why it is a mess. There we are. Thank you. So... let's crack on. I'm going to get rid of my face, and I'm going to read you a bit from chapter 1.4 of the book. It's a little extract. I might abridge it slightly as well. In the 1960s, barely 3 decades after extreme lobbying from the petrochemical and automotive industries had changed our language, our streets, and our attitude towards mass death, not least of children, all on the altar of the motor car, across the motorised world it was realised that the reshaping of our society in favour of private transport led only to the total flattening of our urban realm and of the rural realm beyond it. Today, road collisions account for well over 1 million deaths a year and are the leading cause of death globally for children and young adults, those between the ages of 5 and 30. As many as 50 million people are injured. While deaths of those inside vehicles are, on average, reducing, the number of deaths and severe injuries of vulnerable road users such as pedestrians and cyclists is increasing. Road deaths are an epidemic that we have accepted as part of modern society, and it is absolutely appalling. And if we are to accommodate reductions in carbon emissions and increases in mobility, mostly through the expansion in our use of private vehicles, whether battery-powered or not, then the number of fatalities is going to increase. There is, at best, a paucity of evidence to support claims that... Claims? This is it, you get to enjoy the fun. Claims that driver aids will limit this rise, not least as these are fitted only to the most expensive cars, inaccessible to the majority of drivers. Further, air quality in many cities continues to worsen, even with the proliferation of electric vehicles. The largest source of microplastics in the atmosphere and ocean is car tyres, and this is only going to increase as cars get heavier to accommodate batteries and larger to meet the profit demands of the automotive industry. Car dominance and dependence have even more egregious secondary effects. The urban realm has been twisted, homogenized, fragmented, and flattened to satisfy the needs of these metal boxes. Nowhere is this more obvious than in the US, where whole communities, most often non-white, have been bulldozed to facilitate the growth of highways. Finding somewhere to put all these cars means levelling enormous tracts of cityscape. This is bleakly demonstrated in Detroit, where little remains of its city centre other than acres of open concrete. Head to the suburbs and the construction of low-density housing has resulted in cities built almost deliberately to make them difficult to serve with public transport. This change to our built-up spaces has fragmented populations, shattered communities, and entrenched isolation for hundreds of millions of people worldwide. For the global north, this is resulting in an enormous burden of care as our ageing populations are consequently less and less independent without the mobility provided by walkable cities augmented by good public transport. This results in more reliance on frontline healthcare services, in turn resulting in worse overall outcomes for everyone relying on their nation's health system. No technology can solve this, despite the claims of the tech industry and its coalition with liberal politicians across the globe. We're a half-century down the line from the first big realizations about the dangers of car dominance and the need for humanity to limit its resource consumption, carbon emissions, and land use has grown catastrophically acute. Thus, the need to exploit and expand railways has grown in tandem, even if you also account for our concurrent need to reduce unnecessary travel and consumption. There you are. It's a bit of book. Let me have a little think. So, stuff. I'm just going to see if there's a little extra that I'm going to read. Yeah, here we go. So there's just one last paragraph that I'm going to read that's a hint as to a much broader discussion. But and we've covered this in Rail Letter before. So let's just read this last little paragraph here, the last little paragraph extract. Actually, I might well read the last bit of the book as well, the last bit of this chapter as well. That's pertinent. Okay. So there we go. So, okay. Further to this, relying on low occupancy vehicles for transport locks us into highly resource intensive mobility. Every car requires 2 tons of steel, plastic, and for battery electric vehicles, mined minerals. We may not be able to avoid the use of lithium in our future, but we should not be making active policy choices that increase our consumption instead of reserving its use for where no alternatives are available. Meanwhile, emissions-free rail transport requires no lithium whatsoever. Lithium is only one example among countless others, including refined or processed materials such as plastics, rubbers, lubricants, cement, steel, and so on. Not only are such resources finite, but their extraction or manufacture has environmental and carbon implications, significant implications if we think of concrete and steel manufacture. However, one of our most precious resources is space. The sprawl of human development has fragmented and flattened our biosphere, and this is only accelerated as we have embedded car dependence into our built environment in the last 3/4 of a century. Making better use of the space we've already occupied and limiting how much more we take up are surely prerequisites of any sustainable transport plan. And thanks to their resource and space efficiency, deploying railways at a far greater scale than today is how we get our space back. There we go. C. Beebe's Bedtime Stories with me. Yep, that's it. So I'll bring my face back so you can have me. But that's the book. You can buy it in all good bookstores. It's on its second print run. It's doing extremely well, and I'm very proud of it. And, as I'll tell you in a minute, more developments. Anyway, yeah, there's your treat, everyone. That's a little treat. Oh, by the way, no, in fact, not by the way. I'll wait until the plugs. Pay attention for a secret special announcement for Patreon people that's going to happen in a minute when I get to those plugs, so stay tuned. So... as you can tell, extremely frustrating report. A lot of nonsense. Just so much wrong with it. Just the fundamental premise of it is wrong. It's not aspirational at all. It doesn't solve any problems. I'm very angry. Martha Lawrence banging clipboard and shouting rewilding. Very nice. Yeah, just get Monbio to be friends with me again. That's all. He blocked me after I told him he was speaking shit about HS2, which he was. Anyway, yeah. So there we go. Oh, yeah. Dihydron monoxide, age a few thousand years old. Yeah, quite. So, there we go. Michael C. Why is it a fucking Gareth Ennis 2024? Yeah, quite. That is what we do. I don't mute myself. I don't beat myself because I actually care about swearing over the airways. Although to everyone's children who are watching this right now, to all those little ones out there, you're going to grow up to be amazing, and swearing is fine so long as it's applied in a way that's humorous and fun and intelligent, and not just as a You know what? It's also fine as a warning that a noun's coming. That's also all right. Swearing's fine. It's not about the words you use; it's about the way you use them. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks for all your questions in chat. Let us draw to. You know what? I don't know what the conclusion of this is, other than what the hell were the Resolution Foundation thinking? Write to them, shout at them, ask them why they wrote such a dreadful report, ask them if it was just because they assumed what the CCC was telling them was correct and why they haven't dug into it, and why, by the way, as the Resolution Foundation, whose I think principal aims is trying to improve societal equity, why they've ignored the extent to which letting cars be the future of personal transit, or be the future of human mobility, let's put it that way, why they've not explored how much that's going to entrench all of the existing inequalities in our society, because it's really quite a mess of a document. Good grief. Anyway, Jonathan Dixon, not related to the episode, but why is the progress flag in the background upside down? That's an intriguing question. It is, isn't it? We could probably fix that in episode, couldn't we? Oh, no, I can't because I'm wired in and I'd pull it off. But yeah, I could probably fix that. That's been like that in almost every episode since I put the progress flag there a while back. It's because the flags came like that. Oh, no, they didn't. I've got a whole bunch of other ones over there. They didn't come like that. I bet that the flag fell off and then I put it back on upside down like an idiot and then didn't notice. You're right. Red does go at the top. Well, no one from the LGBTQ plus community has shouted at me about it yet, although they would have been within their rights to. So that's, I guess, it's a strange rebellion, but maybe it might be interpreted as a slight against the community, which it absolutely is not. Gays, I love you. No, I'll fix that for the next episode. Good shout, thank you. Let's see. Ella says you've been flying a distress signal. Appropriate considering the job. Yeah, thanks, Ella. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Martha saying I can shout at you if you like. Yeah, Martha, you do shout, absolutely do shout at me. That's legitimate. Lots of people saying hadn't even noticed that, so well spotted. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, there we go. So thanks everyone. Right, enough of my waffling. We're going to wrap this up before the hour. So the usual plugs. Well, no, not the usual plugs. First of all, thanks for listening to this in audio only format. I'm once again a bit late with the episode scheduling. I'll try and get last week's up. Now-ish after this episode goes out, all good audio platforms for this podcast, and the thing that I'm going to talk about in a minute, the usual plugs and the special announcement in a minute. So patreon.com/Gareth Dennis for for Loose Change and Abuse. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise, of which there is plenty, including the very popular See It, Say It Sacked mug. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for... No, did I say Loose Change and Abuse for Patreon.com? No, that's wrong. PayPal.me/Gareth Dennis for Loose Change and Abuse. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the chat to continue ad infinitum. No. Patreon.com/Gareth Dennis is where you can support me to do more of this sort of thing, and also allow me to actually have an income, or let's say not completely erode there's not very much left of my savings. Basically, the accrued, I've not really spent much of the Patreon money, so it's just been piling up in my sort of second current account. As a right, I need if I need to buy, if I spend money on train tickets for a rail natter, or ancillary stuff that I do, or traveling, I use it, and I think probably the Patreon people are quite happy with this, because they often say that they don't just support for rail natter, they support me just kind of doing the advocacy that I do. If I take the train to London, for example, for like meeting a charity, or meeting a minister, or meeting a this, that, and the other, I will pay for the train tickets out of the Patreon pot, which is, I think, what you hope for me to do. But it's also, at the moment, that pot has obviously been getting quite a bit smaller. The other thing I was doing with that pot, because it is also kind of an income for me from the stuff that I do, is paying for things that the family needs to pay for, like returfing the garden, because the builders did a dreadful job when they did the garden originally, and other such things like that. Family things, life things. New car when the car dies, my new bicycle, given that the bad cycle path outside of where I live has actually broken the rear wheel of my bicycle, and I've popped a spoke or two, and now my rear wheel is really warped and it's really old, and you can't get 24-inch wheels really anymore, and so on and so on and so on. I'm getting distracted. Anyway, Martha's shouting at me. Thank you, Martha. I'm glad you're shouting at me. I need shouting. Anyway, right, all that waffle is to say, I need to say thank you to you Patreon people for that, and I'm going to do so by, here's the exclusive announcement, offering 20 places, first come, first serve. No signs to it. Shout at me again if you get upset by the process, but it's a first come, first serve for the Patreon folk to come to the book launch. Which is happening, not that long, on the evening of the 12th of November in an undisclosed location. So I would be very keen for those 20 people to, how exactly the process by which I get that first come, first serve, I haven't quite worked out yet, but basically it'll be kind of a bit of a DM me if you're interested in coming along. But if you're a patron supporter, do that. Please do that. 20 places available for patron supporters to come along to the book launch. Be very, very pleased to have you along, because I wouldn't be doing any of this without you. Anyway, there's my little patron situation thing. Ella saying just make a channel in Discord. Oh, someone who is an admin person could do that. Ella, that used to be you actually, but that's fine. Anyway, right. Where, when, I can't say where and when, because then everyone will turn up. But just suffice to say that if you first come, first serve it, I'll add you to my the list and give you the details, and I will see you there. Anyway, if it's the sort of thing where you say, can I come, and then you find out you can't, then obviously I'll just open that place back up again, don't worry. So yeah, if you're interested, message me. If it can make it work, then you're in. Anyway, right, what else? Oh yeah, the book. It's doing fantastically. Don't let that stop you from buying it, because if more people buy it, then more people will own it, and the bookshops will buy more, and then more people own it again, and it'll do even better. Do you know what's funny about the publication industry, the publishing industry, sorry, is that this is currently the... Actually, no, I can't say that. Let's just say it's doing very, very well for Repeater as a little indie publisher right now. And yet the amount that I will earn from it is like a quarter of it. It's like a quarter or a third of a monthly salary. It's... I didn't do it for the money, absolutely not. But it does make me wonder, how do people who are writers and authors survive? And the answer is only rich people can write books, mostly. So if you're not a rich person and you are writing a book, all power to your elbow. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is this, because, yes, as lots of you already know, I have been recording the audiobook over the last couple of days. More to be done. Here's the setup that I've been sat recording at with the lovely Luke at Appley Bridge Studio. A genuinely terrific little setup, a very lovely little crew going as I record this thing. It sounds really good, actually. Lots of me reading, and then it being fixed by technology, and also me sort of stopping and re-recording bits and so on and so on. I'm really pleased with how it's coming. I've been ill the whole time, but the good thing about that is at least I've been consistently ill sounding. So no, it sounds, it doesn't, I don't sound painfully ill. The usual breathing issues throughout will be fixed in post-production, because I know I do things like that all the time, and I'm really, really sorry. It's what happens when you have a non-functioning nose. I have a nose right now and no air passes through it, which is really very useful for being an audio recording person. Terrific. Anyway, it's happening. It will be coming soon. Do buy the book as well. The audiobook, I have no idea what the pricing will be. I assume it won't be a huge amount. And it's kind of a different thing, isn't it? You know, having the book is a thing that you can hold physically. I think they're really pretty. And the audiobook is the thing that you can have it read to you by me, a Muppet with a mustache. Anyway. Oh, other announcements. I have been adopted on a temporary basis as the fifth ? Sixth ? Seventh ? Host of Well, There's Your Problem, which is unbelievably exciting and cool, because this is a podcast that I think it's the podcast that got me into podcasting, actually, as in both listening to podcasts and then ultimately making this one. So, me and the Activate Windows logo, we're getting on pretty well, actually. You could say it's certainly breached the parasocial levels now. No, this lot are lovely. I love them very dearly. They're brilliant, and I'm one of their co-hosts at the moment, which is unbelievably and almost intolerably cool. I don't really know how to process or deal with it, but it's very cool. I'll be recording again this evening for another episode. But the latest episode came up, and it was about Cincinnati's abandoned subway, or rather its closed subway, because it's well scares your problem, which is good fun. So drop in there and have a listen. It's the usual WTYP fare, and hopefully I don't ruin the dynamic of the podcast. Knowing all three of the crew, having met all three of them, and having spent quite a bit of time with Roz and with Liam, the dynamic of that podcast with the three of them is perfect. Every one of them complements the overall picture of it absolutely perfectly, and I have nothing but love for them. They're wonderful. So you can go and listen. Now, next week, my very rapidly and in episode improvised next week episode. It's a news. It's a news episode. There's a lot in a pile that I've been ignoring for quite a while. We'll go through the budget again in a little bit more detail. There's quite a bit to pick up. So that is all of that. Good grief. Plenty there for me to have picked through. All I have to say is, if I bring my muggins back, is thanks so much, everyone. It's been a fun little episode. I need to do that and that because I've forgotten to. Sorry. As ever, absolute pro. Everyone, I am going to wave vigorously. Thank you so much for that. We've kept it within the hour. I managed it. Hooray! So I'll see you. Oh, some other fun. There's some pre-records coming up from Up in Locomotion if you want a bit of a tease of some of the other fun stuff, and guest episodes. There are some guest episodes coming with 3 guest episodes lined up, one of which with, in fact, all 3 with brilliant people. I'm looking forward to sharing those with you. In any case, everyone, I will see you very soon. Drop your messages into the Discord server or wherever. If you're a Patreon person, just message me and I will put you on the list. Doesn't matter how, just get messaging. Everyone else, Take good care of yourselves. Cheerio!